Welcome back, and thank you for joining us. This is our second episode of the Week 9 specials of the Fan Bros podcast. We're coming up on another important weekend, hoping to bring you some fire.
Yeah, we got a little player comparison today, a little naked, just going over the stats, no team names, no nothing, see if we can guess them, kind of show you realistic value over fantasy value. Going to talk about some of the COVID situations, the craziness going down. Might even talk on the election, who knows?
Who knows? And to finish it off today, we're going to talk about some players who will outperform projections of Week 9. Kind of our versions of a stardom, guys that you definitely want in your lineup this week. So, let's kick it off. Go ahead and start us off with your first mystery player, A versus B.
Okay, let's get right into it. So, got two tight ends here, Greg. First one, now we'll go with the bigger stat line guy first. 62 targets, 47 catches, 372 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns, okay? The second guy is 46 targets, 30 receptions, 349 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Okay, I'm just going to maybe see if I can get one guess of guys in that range. Let me say, is one of those, I don't know, Robert Tonyan?
No, that's a good guess, though. That's a good little guess.
I'm going to get one more, Mark Andrews. Is either of those Mark Andrews?
No.
Okay.
So the higher value guy that everyone views as the better of the two is Darren Waller, and he's the first guy with 62 targets, but has almost the exact same stat line, and he has a fumble loss as Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst has 20 less targets, 30 less receiving yards, and also 3 touchdowns.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I was thinking kind of higher end on that note, so... what does that mean? Do you think that's meaningful? Are we kind of overvaluing Waller, undervaluing?
I just think that, kind of, yeah. People really view Waller as like a top tight end one, and the way the offense is rolling right now, he's kind of producing like a back end tight end one. I would not say Hayden Hurst is a top end tight end one. He's more of a back end as well, and the fact that they're neck and neck, although. Waller has had a bye. Hayden hasn't had a bye yet. That kind of does matter, but they're neck and neck right now.
Yeah, that is interesting to think about. It's still kind of. I think Waller had a pretty hot start, but
yeah,
I guess he tempered out. But still, I still would. If you ask me, I'd rather have him over Hurst. But
yeah,
that's interesting to see that Hurst is actually kind of keeping up with Waller there.
Yeah, it's a nice little one.
Okay. So that's kind of what we're gonna do here. Hunter doesn't know the players I've got. I don't know what he's got. Kind of just tell you, two players in the same realm, but we seem to look at one higher. This will kind of shed a little light on that and see if we think it's accurate or not. So my first one, we're going to go to a set of running backs. Running back A, he's got 100 rush attempts for 389 yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. He also has 18 receptions and 171 receiving yards, no receiving touchdown. And running back B, 101 carries for 392, almost identical rushing stats, 3 rushing touchdowns as well, 16 receptions, 161 receiving yards, but a receiving touchdown, which player A does not have. Can you guess either of those guys? 300, almost 400 yards, 3 TDs on the ground.
Is one of those players Raheem Mostert?
No, it is not Raheem Mostert.
Give me a second.
That's a good guess, though.
Man. I'm trying to think if Christian McCaffrey went off that hard at the beginning of the season. I don't think... No.
Yeah, he hasn't played enough ball to get to 400.
Have that.
Give me one more, and then I'll tell you who they are.
Is one of them... No, Todd Gurley has too many touchdowns. Fuck. That's a good one. That's like a... Is one of those David Johnson?
So, player B, who has nearly identical stats to player A with the receiving touchdown, is David Johnson.
Okay.
And player A is Jonathan Taylor of the Colts.
Ooh.
So, they are almost identical in fantasy points. David Johnson actually has 3 more points in standard leagues than Jonathan Taylor.
Damn, that's a good one.
I think it's meaningful is just to see that Jonathan Taylor has been a whole bunch of hype, not a whole lot of bite this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's still in the RB2 rank of total points scored, but David Johnson, we kind of look down on his performances, and Jonathan Taylor has done pretty much the exact same.
Yeah, that's just like kind of like the Hayden Hurst Waller thing. Like, are you gonna sit Taylor in this scenario? Like, no, but it just kind of makes you realize that he hasn't been producing like up there at the top guys, and we kind of viewed him as that RB1 where he's kind of not really the RB1 right now.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, what I'm learning even just from putting these together is the beginning of the season really sets in your mind who a player is.
Yeah.
And then if they don't perform from that point forward, we almost justify why.
Yeah.
And if a player starts slow and picks up, we think it's kind of a mirage. So Jonathan Taylor, at one point, whoever had him was crazy excited. The numbers just aren't backing up an RB1, and this is kind of a shocker to me. He's about the same as David Johnson.
Okay, the next one I got a pair of running backs, and it's not as tight as the last two we had. They're pretty. Those stat lines are actually pretty tight. So let's go with the higher thought of running back in this group. He's got 50 rush attempts, 225 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 5 targets, 3 catches, 25 yards. So essentially 250 yards from scrimmage and 2 rushing touchdowns.
Okay.
The other one has 43 rushing attempts, 186 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 8 targets, 6 catches for 41 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown. So right around 230 scrimmage yards, but an extra touchdown.
So, I mean, it sounds like these are guys who have not played that many weeks with the number of touches they've gotten.
How wise you are, Greg.
So, to guess on that front, man, this one's hard, and I'll probably be way off. Let me go with J.K. Dobbins. Is he one of those guys?
No, I mean, you're sniffing up the right.
Okay. Gus Edwards, maybe?
Oh, should have gone Marky Mark.
Mark Ingram, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the high end is Mark Ingram. Let's see if you can get the low end right now.
And he's only missed a couple games.
Yeah, the low end has more points.
That's pretty unimpressive. Number two, let me say Justin Jackson?
No. Another back that's missed a lot of time, Zach Moss.
Wow.
Yeah, so Zach Moss has 1 more touchdown than Mark Ingram. They kind of have played around the same amount of games.
Moss probably a little bit less.
Yeah, and Moss is way more efficient. Well, not on the ground, but just overall.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. I think it's no secret that Mark Ingram has been a disappointment.
Yeah.
That really illustrates that. But the Zach Moss thing is interesting because
he's not even the RB1 in the backfield necessarily.
Yeah, maybe it's just kind of a recency bias. It seems like he missed a lot of time, and for him to already have similar or better numbers to Mark Ingram, and he's healthy now, I think that gives Moss kind of a tick up.
Yeah, I wouldn't, and we've talked about it, how you want to kind of get your hands on Moss because Devin Singletary is not really that good, and Moss probably would take it over, but it's kind of uncertain still, but it's kind of shaping out that way with him getting the goal line work immediately now that he's healthy again. So
when we called for people to pick him up too, it was almost a glorified handcuff with a little standalone value.
Yeah,
it's looking to be more than that. Maybe sneaking into the lower end RB2 ranks with the upside that Singletary misses. So it's an interesting comparison, and it really shows light. Ingram has been a disappointment. The other two backs have looked better when they're in there. So that kind of caught me off guard. Zach Moss, it doesn't feel like he's flashed a whole lot besides his last game, but to already have a comparable stat line is pretty crazy. Let me take another stab at one. This one I thought was pretty good. So we've got 2 wide receivers. Player A has 75 targets, 53 receptions, 548 yards, and 3 receiving TDs. So pretty solid yardage, couple TDs.
Okay.
The second guy has 52 targets for 33 receptions, 488 yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. So just a little bit less yardage, less targets, similar touchdowns. Can you guess either of those players? It's hard with receivers.
Hold on. Is one of those DeAndre Hopkins?
They are not DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay. Is one of those players Keenan Allen?
It is Keenan Allen.
Okay.
So player
Keenan Allen is, yeah, okay.
He is player A with 548 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns.
Okay. And then the other one has, what's the other stat line of the other one?
He's got 33 catches, 488 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. I have to add, Keenan Allen did lose a fumble, so this next player actually is outscoring him in a standard league.
Okay. Stephon Diggs?
It's not Stephon Diggs. It's actually T. Higgins.
T. Higgs!
Is outscoring Keenan Allen in standard leagues. And,
TD.
And that's kind of, like you said, Keenan Allen, he could fetch a wide receiver 1 value in a trade.
Yeah.
T. Higgins, not so much, but
Yeah.
he is actually outscoring Keenan Allen. He has 28 yards on the ground as well, so kind of a shocker when I saw it, and I think I think we value Keenan Allen correctly. I just think we're undervaluing
T. Higgins.
T. Higgins when you look at this. I mean, the sample size isn't that small, and he's hanging up there with the Keenan Allens of the world.
And if you just watch a little bit of the Bengals games, you watch him go out there and catch, he is a freak of nature. He just looks so big. You almost need to call him Tree Higgins. That boy is huge out there. That man, he's a beast.
And he's sharing the load with Tyler Boyd and even A.J. Green a little bit.
Yeah, he's not even
Keenan Allen's kind of the only one there. So the receptions are greater for Keenan Allen, but the yardage and touchdowns are very similar. So T. Higgins is pretty explosive per touch, and I think he kind of deserves a little more respect as we get closer to the playoffs.
He's definitely Burrow's favorite target.
He's definitely becoming it, I would say. He's got a bright future in the league.
Okay, the next one I have is kind of crazy. These players have played the same amount of games. These are both wide receivers. So I'm going to go with the one that has a little bit higher stats, definitely higher valued in fantasy football leagues. He has 39 targets, 27 receptions, 354 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns.
Okay. The 5 touchdowns that narrows it a little, but still
Yeah. The next player that's undervalued is 39 targets, 29 receptions, 369 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Okay. So, I mean, both those guys have either missed a little time or they're just
missed some time.
Or they're just kind of boom or bust guys. So, let me just take a crack at who one of those is. The 5 touchdowns. I'm trying to think. Not all that many players have 5+ touchdowns. Let me say 5 touchdowns. Is one of those players A.J. Brown?
Yes.
Which one? Player A with
player
the 5?
A, yeah, with the 5.
Okay. So player B with similar yardage. I mean, that's a good stat line for missing some games. Player B, I can't even take a good guess. Who is player B?
It's actually from the same team, Corey Davis.
Corey Davis.
Missed the same amount of games, has 10 more yards than him, same amount of targets, and 2 more catches than him. Obviously doesn't have same amount of touchdowns. He's missing 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, but those aren't something you can really rely on. Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I mean, yeah, that's
neck and neck on the same team. They have like the same split right down the middle target count, which is insane.
And kind of like I was saying, I think when he has big games, I consider it kind of a fluke.
Yeah.
But A.J. Brown is, of course, it's A.J. Brown.
Exactly right.
So do you think that's sustainable, or do you think they kind of have a similar, output the rest of the way?
I think that A.J. Brown is obviously going to finish with more stats and points in fantasy just because he is getting more targets. The offense is running through him more per se, but Corey Davis is a big part of this offense, and to ignore that, like he's not a startable fantasy asset to people out there is kind of stupid.
I mean, that's kind of, I would say I must not have paid attention because those are pretty big numbers with the games he's missed. And I think he's a guy that coming into the last few seasons, there was hype. He didn't need him, so we kind of wrote him off. But
and we thought he had that breakout at the beginning of last year when he had that touchdown to win the game.
Yep.
I think Mariota was still the quarterback then or something.
He was.
And we're like, oh, he's hyped. He caught the game winner and then did nothing the rest of the season.
So
big dud.
That offense is clicking, and Corey Davis deserves more consideration.
He was a number 5 pick overall for them. People forget that.
That's what made it disappointing the last few, but I think it's just the passing offense was not even average.
Yeah,
now it's above.
Exactly.
Well, that's interesting to watch down the road if Corey Davis keeps up. So,
yeah.
I mean, the guys we're saying as players B might be guys you can acquire for less than their value because they're not really the big name guy. I mean, it's kind of an interesting segment. Let me go on to some other receivers here. Receiver A has 71 targets, 48 receptions, 527 yards, and 2 receiving TDs.
Okay.
And player B has 44 targets, 29 receptions, but has 435 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. I'll say player B is outscoring player A by 2 points in standard leagues. 48 catches, 527, 2 touchdowns versus 29 catches, 435 receiving yards, but 4 receiving touchdowns.
Damn. Is one of those Justin Jefferson?
It is not Justin Jefferson, but I would actually think he's probably kind of in that same range.
Yeah,
maybe more yardage.
Maybe more yardage. That's why I was.
That's a good guess on player A. Take one more crack and then we'll lay out what they are. This one's kind of the surprising one.
What was on the lesser player, the yards? The
435 receiving yards, four touchdowns on just 29 receptions. So kind of a big play guy.
Dude, I don't know if that was this week or last week.
This is hard to pick.
I know. I don't even know.
So let me go ahead and tell you. Player A is Cooper Kupp.
Oh,
527 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he's pretty highly sought after, having a good year, at least yardage. The second guy who's outscoring player A, Cooper Kupp, by 2 points in standard leagues is Travis Fulgham of the Eagles.
Wow.
He's having a big yard per reception mark. 29 catches, 435 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So he has been more valuable to date. Even at the beginning of the year, he was non-existent.
Yeah.
So he's come on strong. Do you think that he deserves more respect?
100%, because I don't even think he played at some of the beginning of the games, right?
I don't think so. Even if he did, he didn't do anything.
Yeah, no, and I don't think he did. I don't think he was activated until the second or third game, if I remember correctly. So I think he does. You have to put some respect on it, because he's out there. He's saying it with his chest. He's doing it every week. I think I think I saw a tweet. Maybe it was after last week or maybe after this week, where he was the leading receiver in the NFL for yards since week 4.
Yeah, and this kind of shows it right there, 400 and something.
We said one of the names, Justin Jefferson. You would think it'd be a player like that, but for it to be him, that's Travis a sneaky. Fulgham, that's sneaky right there.
And he probably only got his opportunity because of injuries to other guys, but
and then now it looks like they don't even need the other guys.
You know
what I mean? We were waiting on Deshaun Jackson. Is Alshon Jeffrey even gonna get fucking activated at this point? There's no point.
Exactly, and I don't think it's a case of 1 or 2 good weeks. He's strung a few together, so put some respect on Travis Fulgham's name. And Cooper Kupp, he's not getting the touchdowns that we really just penciled him in for, and that's kind of hurting him. He's still having a good year, but, I mean, other guys are getting above him, getting more in the red zone.
And we had talked about it when we said trade for the Rams receivers, and we had talked about Woods going to finish with more touchdowns because of touchdown regression. Just Cooper Kupp had way too much touchdowns, and Robert Woods only had 3. Which were there going to be positive touchdown regression for Woods and negative for Cooper, and that's just kind of what's playing out right now. Because he's getting more targets. He had 21 last week.
He did. That was
for
insane.
Like 110 yards. But, I mean, it's not really mattering. It doesn't matter if you're not getting the touchdown cherry on top every week.
Definitely. I mean, his name still holds a lot of value, but he's not a wide receiver 1 this year. And Travis Fulgham, I mean, the last few weeks has been probably among the top 12 guys.
Yeah, for real.
That's an interesting one. So, what, do you have one more? I've got one more. If you.
I don't. So you want to go ahead?
Okay, let me hurry up and hit you with this one. 2 tight ends.
Okay.
Tight end A has 39 targets, 23 catches, 275 yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. Player B has 29 catches, 324 yards, 4 touchdowns, as well as a 2-point conversion. Player B is outscoring Player A by 0.1 points in the standard league. So 5 touchdowns versus 4 touchdowns. Not too many tight ends have done it. One won't surprise you. One probably will.
Okay. Man.
275 yards, 5 touchdowns for player A, the bigger name. 321 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a 2-point conversion, player B. Probably not as highly sought after.
I want to say Kelsey, but he has way bigger stats than the 5 touchdowns. I'm just drawing a blank on
the yards for him would be more.
For the touchdowns right
it's
now.
It's tough.
Because I'm thinking what guy even has fucking 5 touchdowns right now?
Outside of Kelsey, it'll probably surprise you with only 275 yards.
Man. Oh, man, I'm drawing a stop. I don't even know. You just lay it on me.
All right, so player A is Mark Andrews.
Oh, why didn't I even think of Mark?
Yeah, and doesn't seem to do a whole lot this year. Only 275 yards, but the 5 touchdowns.
5 touchdowns, yeah.
But, I mean, he's thought of as a top 3, top 4 tight end. Who's actually outscoring him is T.J. Hawkinson. T.J. Hawkinson. He's the arrow's up. He's been good lately. A little more yards and just 1 less touchdown, but still not many tight ends have 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, what do you make of that? Hawkinson and Mark Andrews neck and neck in fantasy points.
I think that, man, I still believe that Andrews may turn it up, but I think that means that if you have a Hawkinson on your team somehow, I might be looking to start him over Andrews until Andrews is just the value that he used to be. I mean,
Definitely.
you know,
Definitely.
because his down weeks are down, and Hawkinson kind of has a floor right now.
He does, yeah. I mean, Andrews, if he doesn't score, the yards are not there. But I think for me, it just illustrates that T.J. Hawkinson is a top 8 tight end currently and rest of the season. I mean, he's up there among the kind of elites. He's a lot of tight ends will have booms and busts and everything. He's got, like you said, the safer floor, and that at tight end is very special. So I thought that was pretty impressive that those two are virtually identical in stats.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Hawkinson is definitely better than he probably gets recognized for with the name value versus the Mark Andrews. So
for sure,
Hawkinson might be the time to acquire if the owner's not sold on him yet, because he's putting up numbers. He could easily finish with 7-8 touchdowns and 800 yards.
Yeah, and it's time not to be shy anymore. Trade deadlines are creeping up. I know we're gonna have a special next week, but it's time to get out there and text somebody. It's not girls. It's just a bunch of guys. Dude, don't be shy. Just go out there and text them.
Hit them up. And you know, with bye weeks, some players are hurting more than others too for fill-ins. So if you're somebody who can take advantage of that, you're pretty comfortable. Maybe, give some running backs that are just playing these weeks and try to get a guy like Fulgham, Hawkinson on the low, because their numbers are, higher than their name probably would suggest a trade value would be. So that was a segment for y'all. I mean, hopefully it's a little bit fun. Just kind of, it's interesting to look at, just to see the names. We kind of have a predetermined idea of who they are. And some of these lesser guys are outperforming or keeping up with them. So
yeah.
The last thing we want to touch on is some players, kind of our stardom, but more so just players this week, week 9, who are going to outperform the projections. So kick us off with one of yours.
I'm a repeat offender right now. I'm doubling down on AG, the weapon, Antonio Gibson. He's projected around Yahoo and a quarter PPR league we have right now, like 11.66 points. I think he's going to go over that for sure against the New York Giants at home. Kyle Allen looks good. The offense looks good. Logan Thomas and Terry McLaurin look good, so I feel like he's probably going to get a goal line touchdown, maybe 60, 70 yards again, and we'll see. And that would definitely be over the projection. So
I could see it. The Giants aren't anything special, and yeah, Gibson, he's been explosive with his touches. So you think he goes over 12 points this week?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Okay, I could definitely see it. I mean, he's a guy who's been a pleasant surprise, you could say.
Definitely.
So my first one, who I just covered in the tight end section, is T.J. Hawkinson versus the Minnesota Vikings. Now I will say Minnesota, their best strength right now is probably defending tight ends. Their linebackers are really athletic, but with Kenny Golladay out, it's still going to be a kind of shootout. I expect Matt Stafford to play, so this is interesting. He is a high-risk, close-contact trace guy, so he's not able to practice or be at the facility all week. If he tests negative through Saturday, he can be activated Saturday, so he will not get to practice, but he looks like he will play Sunday. So if that's the case, T.J. Hawkinson to me definitely eclipses the 10-point mark. I think he scores, and I think he has at least 60 yards. So I'm thinking a big week from him. Get him in your lineup.
Yeah, I have a QB right now. Some people would think it's a little low-hanging fruit, but it's Ben Roethlisberger and standard quarterback scoring. He's right around 21 points at Dallas. I think he's definitely going to be over that, at least 23, maybe even up there at the close to the 30s. I think he's going to have a big game against Dallas, washed defense.
So I think that means he gets 3 passing touchdowns. Do you think he hits that mark?
Definitely, yeah. I think he does.
Okay.
I think it's like a get-right game for Ben.
Yeah, and I mean, we say get-right game. They're undefeated right now.
Yeah, I know, but it's not. Some games he doesn't even look like really that good. It's kind of crazy, honestly.
If he figures it out, it's dangerous. And, even if they get a lead on Dallas early, I think they keep going because it looks like only one team gets a bye this year, right?
Yeah.
With the new 17 playoffs. So
yeah.
To have the best record in the AFC is a big goal for them. I'll just go ahead and give mine. He was my last guy, but honey, Juju Child. Juju Smith-Schuster this week, like he was thinking Ben Roethlisberger goes off. Juju's been kind of doing better the last few weeks. He's had comfortable floor, getting more receptions than we thought. Dallas is pretty vulnerable against the slot, and I do think the Steelers have a lot to play for. Even if Dallas isn't able to keep up, I think they really try to put it on him here. So I think Juju scores. He's projected around 9-10 points in the standard league. I think he eclipses the double-digit mark. I think in a PPR setting, he's safe for 5 to 7 catches. Yeah. So I could see him getting upwards of 20 points this week. He's done you dirty in the early part of the season. This week, he's a guy that you should start.
Yeah, the last one I have, we're going to give a little tight end action in here. I've hyped him up. We just did him in one of the naked segments. Hayden Hurst. In a quarter PPR league that we have, he's projected 7.85 points. And I think he's definitely going to smash that with Ridley being banged up. Julio still playing through injury, even though he's balling as Julio does. I think he's going to get over that for sure.
This is the week he gets in the end zone.
Yeah, I think this is the week he gets in there, gets his feet wet.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, he's been a little bit disappointing for sure. But for this week, yeah, with Ridley out and Julio is still there to open up the middle, I could definitely see it. If this is their week to find the end zone, it's probably going to be him. Let me touch on my last one. And it's still not an excellent matchup, anything special, but Gus Edwards against the Colts. Mark Ingram is doubtful, so again, it'll be the Edwards and Dobbins show. I like Gus Edwards here. I think they're also able to keep it competitive, if not have a steady lead, and he is the bruising back for them. The Colts have been good on defense, not as good of late, and I think Gus Edwards he's pretty fresh legs for a running back at this point in the season.
Man, he's as fresh as you
and
get.
I think he thumps. So he's projected around 10 points. I think he gets in the end zone, and that puts him over that. And I think this might be a 2-touchdown game for Gus Edwards. That would be kind of my bold prediction, that you want to start him among most RB2s this week.
Yeah, and I'm thinking the same way because Dobbins, people have been ad dropping him in a couple leagues, and I almost scooped him and kept him, but I know in the back of my brain that Gus is just going to get both the touchdowns this week, and I'm going to be ended up holding Dobbins for no reason.
It'll break your heart.
And I could have scooped someone else.
Yeah, definitely so. So, some guys we think that are going to outperform projections. This is a good week to have in your lineup. Gus Edwards, Antonio Gibson at the running back position. A pair of Steelers in Big Ben Roethlisberger and Juju Smith-Schuster. And then some tight ends, Hayden Hurst and T.J. Hawkinson. You got anything else to add, Hunter? It's kind of getting down to it. Next week we're going to put on a trade deadline special, a whole episode dedicated to trade deadlines, moves you can make in different positions. You know, if you're in the lead, if you're in the middle, if you're at the end, we're going to kind of break it into tiers and some guys that you can target because it's coming down to it, and your depth isn't going to do you as much as the studs in your lineup.
Yeah, we're really going to break it down that episode. It might be an hour-long one. We're going to get into strength of playoff schedules, stat lines, snap counts, targets, red zone targets. We're really going to break down who has the real value, not in the fantasy world, who's this, who's that, who's a player that you want to have starting in the last 3 weeks of the season when you're in the playoffs. Other than that, we're going to keep pounding out the 2 episodes. We're sorry about missing the last one last week, but, we're back on the grind.
Definitely so. And COVID, keep it up. There's no real significant players of interest this week we have to watch outside of Matthew Stafford. Mm-hmm. But a lot of defenders are catching it. There's a lot of guys having it, so it could get dicey. Also, with looking ahead to the trade deadline show, it's not going to be as much as usual where we flip all of our depth for starters just because of COVID. It makes it a little bit interesting. Yeah. So we think the strategy will be a bit different when you still want a third running back that can produce a fourth wide receiver. It's going to be a little bit different, and keep up with the COVID news. We'll share on our Twitter as much as we can, things that are going to impact you, on either side of the ball. Mm-hmm. So it's a time to focus. It's not a time to get lax. It's the final push.
Yeah, definitely. People that get lax right now, the people that end up losing their 5-3 lead and they don't make playoffs. So this is the time to buckle down. Check the @FanBros podcast. We update especially with any players that we suggest if there's any news on them, but any news in general that would affect your rosters, we're kind of on top of it. Give us a follow, give the YouTube a follow, and I think we're out.
We're out. We will see y'all next week. Good luck.